Keanu then stunned the public by turning down a role in Speed 2. At the time, it was like Bruce Willis turning down a sequel to Die Hard. But Keanu was determined to avoid getting typecast for the next 20 years. When the sequel finally came out, it was clear that he had made the right decision. But the same cannot be said for agreeing to replace Val Kilmer in the post-apocalyptic action movie Johnny Mnemonic.
This feels like a blown deal, man.
Although it couldn't be called an honest replacement, because the actor had received the script without it first going through his agency, which also represented Kilmer, avoiding a conflict of interest was impossible. Keanu had been given the script by friends who were aware of his love for screenwriter William Gibson, who had previously written the cult cyberpunk novel Neuromancer. Keanu was immediately on board with the idea, and although he was a more expensive option for the studio than Val, they replaced him.
Double cheese anchovies?
Johnny Mnemonic was a sad experience for Reeves. Many people called the film a low-budget knockoff of a big-budget movie, and working on the project became a living hell. With a $30 million budget, a first-time director, a screenplay whose author had no film experience and had withdrawn from the project, and a last-minute substitution of the main character, this movie was doomed to fail.
Question.
Yes,
You don't look like the kind of people I usually work for.
we are new at this.
No shit.
Robert Longo's inability to manage the film crew led to some of its members openly mocking the director. Whenever he would make a mistake, someone would start humming a song from The Wizard of Oz.
I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
Needless to say, without at least an inkling of authority, the director completely lost control of the filming process. The obvious result was a box office failure and Keanu's second Golden Raspberry nomination, which served as a topping on the cake of criticism he received.
I want room service!
In May of 1995, the actor could open up the movie section of any magazine and learn a lot about himself, especially if one of his movies had recently come out.
You've got something better.
No, I don't.
The romantic drama A Walk in the Clouds is now almost a classic, which both Keanu and fans of the genre sincerely love. But in 1995, critics berated the film, and Reeves was once again nominated for yet another Razzie.
And I was gonna say something, but...
In all fairness, it's worth noting that the film broke even at the box office and won the Golden Globe for Best Original Score. A Walk in the Clouds wasn't the only thing to become famous for its music. In addition to riding motorcycles and reading, Keanu picked up a new hobby. He began playing bass in a rock band called Dogstar. The band was officially created in 1991 when Keanu met actor Robert Mailhouse. In 1994, the band began to play small gigs that consisted mostly of Keanu fans. But by early 1995, they were playing at the Belly Up in San Diego and at the Los Angeles Legion Hall. This was followed by a week-long tour in Japan, where Reeves is simply idolized. In September 1995, Dogstar was the opening act for Bon Jovi and David Bowie concerts. And in October, they went on a joint tour with Bon Jovi. Reeves became so engrossed in his musical career that he turned down several financially lucrative offers, and wouldn't answer questions about his acting career at the group's press conferences. To everyone's surprise, his next role was the low-budget crime comedy, Feeling Minnesota.
You want to avoid prison? Quit sticking up gas stations.
A commendable choice. In this film, Keanu managed to show his strengths. Even though the movie received negative criticism and had a mediocre showing at the box office, Keanu's performance was widely praised. Whether the role was worth it or not is unclear, because the actor admitted in subsequent interviews that his character's smoking habit in Feeling Minnesota had caused him to start smoking in real life. But for his co-star, Cameron Diaz, the erotic scenes were the biggest challenge. The actors had to perform in front of more than 30 people, and those scenes were how they first got to know each other. That was like, hi, my name's Cameron, let's fuck. Keanu also starred in another action film in 1996. The sci-fi thriller Chain Reaction featured performances by Morgan Freeman and Rachel Weisz, and is praiseworthy for its pacing and richness. But on the other hand, fans of the genre found the plot to be generic and weak.
You were right.
And given the working conditions that the actors had to deal with, one does start to wonder, why are we even doing this? Due to abnormally low temperatures, the project was frozen several times, literally and figuratively. Firefighters were even called to the set at one point, and they told the crew that they had to stop production. Keanu said that it was the hardest film he had ever worked on. To rub salt in the wound, he also received another nomination for a Golden Raspberry.
We learned something very important today. We found another way that didn't work. We need to keep our minds open, try again.
The only good thing to come out of the project was the foresight of the producers. Before filming this scene, they knew that Keanu would most likely ask to keep the bike for himself, so they let him pick one out in advance. Thus, a 76th edition Kawasaki KZ1000 was added to his collection. The following year, Keanu began simultaneously recording a Dogstar album and working on the film The Last Time I Committed Suicide, for which he put on an extra 30 pounds.
Sometimes a little distraction's a good thing.
The film tells the story that inspired Jack Kerouac to write his most famous book, On the Road. The success of this film can be summed up with two numbers: a $4 million budget and 46,000 in ticket sales. And that was totally fair. There's just one thing that can be considered regrettable. It was a very unusual role for Keanu that most simply missed.
Where'd you get all this cash from, anyway?
Robbed a bank. Kidding.
But a chance to once again demonstrate his talents came almost immediately. We're talking about a classic of modern cinema, the supernatural horror film, The Devil's Advocate.
I like to be in court. I didn't plea out a lot.
This film was a well-known Hollywood long-term project that had been in development for over 8 years. The film went into pre-production 3 times and was to be directed by Joel Schumacher, director of Batman Forever and A Time to Kill. But he left the project at the casting phase after disagreements with the studio. Taylor Hackford, who directed the magnificent film adaptation of Stephen King's Dolores Claiborne, stepped in as a replacement. It was Hackford who wanted to see Keanu in the leading role. The studio also saw him as a great candidate. The only problem was Al Pacino, who had turned down the project 5 times already. Warner Brothers had tried everything they could to get him interested in the role. They removed most of the special effects from the script and rewrote it several times until he liked it.
You write beautifully.
Later on, Pacino began to doubt his ability to embody his character on screen and suggested that he be replaced with Sean Connery or Robert Redford. An agreement was reached only after Reeves gave up part of his salary to accommodate Pacino's demands.
What can I say?
The final result that appeared on the big screen in October of 1997 was brilliant. But getting there was anything but smooth sailing. It all started with Al Pacino expressing his dissatisfaction with his co-star. On several occasions, he said that Keanu's acting was unimpressive, citing Johnny Depp, with whom he had previously worked in Donnie Brasco, as a better example. To Reeves' credit, he never responded to this criticism and continued to do his job. On set, the actors were constantly arguing with the director, who, in their opinion, was filming something completely different from what they had signed up for. They were embarrassed by the abundance of special effects, the disloyalty to the genre, and the director's inability to stick to the script.
A man's career, his reputation, his life is on the line. This is not a joke.
If you didn't already know how it turned out, you would think that the film would have been a disaster, but this production has become one of the greatest in the careers of 3 main characters.
Invigorating.
Charlize Theron, who consulted a psychotherapist for 3 months to help make her portrayal of schizophrenia more realistic, noted that it was Keanu who had played the most memorable role in the film. Keanu is a very underrated actor. His work is just phenomenal. I met him and I remember looking away and wondering, my God, he's got it all back there. I mean, just look into the guy's eyes and it's a wonderland of experiences. I think he's amazing, and not a lot of people know it.
Pack it up, baby. You need a drink.
Keanu really outdid himself as Kevin Lomax, and the minor details, like the costume getting darker as the film progresses, only worked because of who was in them.
I win! I win! I'm a lawyer! That's my job! That's what I do!
Scenes in luxurious places were filmed on location. Alex Cullen's house is located in the apartments of former US President Donald Trump.
Stop. Back up.
And the patio in John Milton's office was filmed on the 50th floor of the Continental Tower, although the water garden was added in post-production. But this shot was taken without using a green screen.
Holy shit.
Little different when you're looking down, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Despite the iconic legacy of The Devil's Advocate, it actually had a mediocre opening at the box office and received mixed reviews from critics. And while the film did turn a profit, its results at the award ceremony seemed like mockery. For example, Al Pacino was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for Best Villain, but lost to Mike Myers' Dr. Evil. The film's only win was a Saturn Award for Best Horror Film. The lack of recognition was offensive to everyone involved in the project. For Reeves, this wasn't the worst thing to happen that year. On May 27th, during another motorcycle ride, Keanu looked death straight in the face. At an intersection on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, he flew into the oncoming lane and crashed into a car. The impact threw him about 30 feet before he landed on the pavement. He had a shattered right ankle and several broken teeth. But he was incredibly lucky for such a serious accident. Keanu later began having problems with his spine. Numerous accidents and years of playing hockey had taken their toll on his body. The diagnosis was so serious that doctors said that he could become totally paralyzed from the waist down. Yet, despite the risk, Keanu joined a project in which he needed to move more than he ever had before in a film. And so, just 1 month after spinal surgery, it was time for Reeves to learn the secret of martial arts. Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you.